Hey, algebra students, it's problems like this that make me say that if you are an experienced level student, especially, or an advanced level student, you're probably only going to need 1 or maybe 2 units of the crash course, or 1 or 2 units of the workbooks if you're working with the workbooks in order to pass the GED, because there's so much overlap. Let's go ahead and read this and I'll explain to you what I mean. It says the slope-intercept form of the equation of a line relates the slope, m. I know it's weird, we use m for slope, but that's what they do. And the y-intercept, b, again, a little weird, but still, that's why I define my terms for you, of a line containing the point x, y. Now, a line contains the point 6, 4, and has a y-intercept b of 1. Solve for m, the slope of the line. Now you might say, Kate, this is rude. We're in unit 1, algebra, and this is clearly unit 2, slope and lines. And I say, yeah, except for, guess what? This equation of a line that they're talking about here, that's on the formula sheet. We can find the slope-intercept form of the equation of a line on the formula sheet, and it relates all these letters they're talking about. Let's go take a look. So here's the GED formula sheet, and the top half of it is geometry. But if you get down to the bottom, you can see that we've got a bunch of algebra formulas, and these are the ones that I want you to look at here. The first 3 here are basically everything from unit 2. Okay. We have slope of a line, slope-intercept form of the equation of a line, and the point-slope form of the equation of a line. So the directions told us that the slope-intercept form of the equation of a line related those things, the x, y, and a point, with the m and the b. But I didn't really need to write that in the directions if you just look at it. See how we have x and y related to an m and a b? So mark up your formula sheet. If you don't have one printed, I highly recommend you print it and just mark it up as we're doing these lessons. No, you won't be able to take your own version in, but by going through this process, you're more likely to remember what these things mean, okay? So the x and y in this are point values, okay? And you'll see those in parentheses, so that's where you'll find x and y. And then the m stands for slope, which is weird, I agree. And the b is the y-intercept. Also weird. But by knowing that, you can now do a bunch of problems that you would not have been able to do without doing unit 2 if you didn't have this formula sheet. All right, so y equals mx plus b, that's the formula we need. And just like always, let's plug in what we know. So this first example says a line contains the point 6, 4. So I told you in the directions and we wrote it on our formula sheet. But when you see points in this form, the first number 6 is the x value and the second number 4 is the y value. And that has to do with finding them in two-dimensional space. It's kind of like saying, on the corner of 1st Street and 2nd Avenue. Same idea here. We use 2 coordinates to find a point in space. Okay, but you can just kind of let that roll over you because today we're just working on plugging into a formula. But it also says that we have a y-intercept b of 1. So we know our b, we know our x, we know our y, and they're telling us to solve for m. Awesome. Let's plug in what we know. Okay, so we said the y value is 4. And that's going to be equal to, m is up, the thing we don't know. And that m is shoved up against x, so they're multiplying. X value we said was 6. And that's going to be plus b, the y-intercept they said was 1. Awesome. Now this looks a little funny the way it's written. We don't usually write m times 6. You could have done this straight from the start, but I just wanted you to see that means the same as 6 times m, and that's how we usually write it, with the number first and the letter or variable second. And so that's plus 1. Okay, now that this looks a little simpler, it's going to be easier to solve for m. I've got 2 numbers to get rid of here to get m alone. M is hanging out with a 6, which is multiplying with it, and a 1, which is adding with it. And do remember that we work the order of operations backwards when we're solving, when we're moving across that equal sign to get a letter alone. And so I'm going to move anything adding or subtracting first. The opposite of adding one is subtracting one. I'll do it to both sides because I know that's the rule of solving right there. Whatever I do on one side, I do to the other. And of course, if I add one, subtract one, it just zeroes out. So I just have 6m. And then there's the work to do on that side. 4 minus 1 is 3. Okay, I need some more room. I'm going to move this over here. 3 equals 6m. Okay, almost done. M is almost alone, but I have this 6. What's it currently doing? It's multiplying. If I want to get rid of it, I'll do the opposite. I'll divide. What am I dividing by? Exactly what I want to get rid of. Can I do that? Of course I can, as long as I do it to both sides. So I keep the left and the right hand side equal. Respect the equal sign. You can do whatever you want. Now, let's look at the right hand side now. Multiplying and dividing by 6 are opposites. They cancel. I get m like I wanted. Now, careful about this. 3 divided by 6. 3 divided by 6 doesn't make sense to a lot of students. And so frequently they'll put it in their calculator with 6 divided by 3. Order matters in division. So you can use the divide by button in your calculator, 3 divided by 6, and you'll get this answer, 0.5, which is a fine, legit answer. There's nothing wrong with it. However, you should know that slope is usually written as a fraction. It's usually written as a fraction. That's the norm, okay? So it's more likely that you'll see this in fractional form, okay? So instead of using the regular divide by symbol for a fractional form with slope, I would use the actual n over d fraction bar to type in 3 over 6. And if you do that, type n over d, 3 on the top, arrow down over the bottom to press 6, and then enter, it will simplify for you and tell you that is 1/2. Or you might have already known that 0.5 is the same as 1/2. But it's more likely that the answer will be in that form in the multiple choices than it would be in a decimal form. So the slope of this first line is 1/2. Nice. Let's look at the next one. It says another line contains the point -2, -1. So again, in a point, that's an x value and that's a y value. And has a slope, or m, of 3. Okay, so I know my m is 3. And they want me to find my y-intercept, my b. All right, let's do it. Let's get out that slope-intercept form of the equation of a line, which relates the x and the y with an m and a b. And let's plug in what we know. We know the y, it's -1. We know the m, it's 3. We know the x, it's -2. But we don't know the b. Now, let your algebra skills kick in. And right from the start, I can see something that I can simplify before I even start solving. Look at just that little piece there. 3 times -2. That is just straightforward computation. Math I know how to do. Like, I know how to do 3 times -2. You might say, Kate, I don't know how to do 3 times -2. No, your calculator does, though. So I can make that piece a little bit simpler before I start solving. So if I do 3 times -2 in my calculator, I get -6. And now I'm going to drop down everything I haven't used up yet. Now, this is not a change I made. That I just followed the directions on the problem. Like, I just performed the indicated operation. It said multiply, I multiplied. So it's only on one side. Okay. And now I have this equation. -1 is equal to -6 plus b. Now, this is one where students go wrong a lot because they're not sure, do I subtract 6 or add 6 with that minus and that plus? I love that you know you either need to add or subtract, because clearly these two things are terms. This is a b and this -6, they're adding and subtracting. But remember your goal here. Your goal is to get rid of -6. So a lot of what students will do wrong is they'll just put -6 here. Some weird, like the minus on the back side. I don't know what that is. But if you have -6 and you minus another 6, guys, you didn't zero out. It didn't go away. Now you're at -12. That would make your equation messier rather than neater. You are going to need to add 6. Again, in order to get it to zero out, subtracting 6 and then adding 6, that cancels. Or -6 and +6, that cancels is another way to think of that. And so I can do whatever I want as long as I do it to both sides. Now, subtracting 6 and adding 6 zeros out. So I have 0 plus b, or nothing and b. That's just b. Okay. And then -1 plus 6, again, do it in your calculator, okay? I don't need you stumbling over the negatives. I want you focused on that hard work, the algebra. But -1 plus 6 is 5. So awesome. I've solved for the y-intercept, also known as b, of this line, and that is 5. See how your algebra skills can help you kind of cheat on things that you're not super familiar with? I love it. All right, you guys, strong work and happy learning.